Hello there. I like to watch challenge videos. Some of them are brilliant and some of them are very silly. Today's challenge definitely fits more into the silly category, I would say. I've decided to see if I can beat Bloodborne, one of my favourite games of all time, using remote play. Now I might need to explain what remote play actually is. Remote play is a feature on the PlayStation consoles that allows you to connect your phone or your tablet to your console so you can play games even if you're not in the same location. The application itself also gives you an on-screen controller, which allows you to play using the touchscreen controls. You could also just connect a controller to the device and then use it as a sort of small screen. However, just playing the game on a small screen isn't very challenging, is it? And if you did use a controller, then you wouldn't see any of the inputs on the screen since you're not touching the screen. So I'm going to play Bloodborne on mobile, which means there's going to be quite a bit of lag and I'll have to play via touchscreen controls. I'm playing this on an iPhone 6, so the screen isn't too big. My phone also basically counts down the battery life in seconds. So I'm going to be using this handy dandy pot noodle power bank to keep me topped up. Anyway, enough gab. It's time to make my junta perfection. I have to admit, I thought it would be slightly easier than this. Something as simple as just moving the character is a Herculean task. I'm so used to just moving the stick and the character just does what you say. Not so much in this case. Like, there's just no resistance on my thumbs, you know? I can't feel if the analogs have kicked in, and I don't have the full range of movement. Honestly, it's very fiddly. Although, I would like to see remote play be used to beat some other games. Maybe games that are quite fast or require some kind of precision. The first game that came to mind there was Crash Team Racing. Now that would be hard. Anyway, into the game, and it's very difficult. I tried to run through as much as I could because combat is tricky. Obviously you have to fight some things, but anything I could avoid, I would be avoiding. At this point you can see I opened up my menu while I was trying to practice parrying. I'm sure that won't be a recurring problem or anything. And I also ended up swapping out my weapons without realising it because the D-pad is directly underneath where my thumb is laying and I occasionally would bounce my thumb off of it. Also, not a recurring problem, I'm sure. After a lot of running around, I finally made it to the Cleric Beast, the first optional boss in the game, and it's a great fight overall. Well, I mean, it's great when you can actually move your character, so of course, I ended up dead, to the surprise of no one, considering I can barely even get through doorways. Instead of just bashing my head against the boss until I win, I was going to do some grinding and get some bigger arms. Because if you can't beat them with skill, you should beat them with stats. I used the tried and true method of leading these werewolves down into the doorway and just killing them over and over again. I don't have too much patience, however, so I didn't grind for very long before I gave up and just decided to bash my head against the boss until I won. But with a few extra points in strength this time. And it actually only took me 3 tries to beat him, but honestly, look how disgusting this fight is. If you can actually see anything at all, it's horrific. I'm just standing there, menacingly, but seriously, I just kind of walked around the boss and tried to roll when I thought it was appropriate. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but the fact that I could walk in there and actually win essentially just by circling the guy and spamming R1 is quite amazing. I wonder if the other bosses in the game will let me get away with this astounding tactic. Thankfully, there's not a great deal of platforming in Bloodborne, since I wanted to go and see Eileen, and it was pretty nerve-wracking trying to walk along these beams, especially given the fact that if the game lagged, I was going straight off. I get to Eileen and I'm at 20% battery power already. At this point I plugged my pot noodle into the hole and got a little bit of juice in there. You know, I can't be having low battery pop-ups interrupting the gameplay. Luckily at that point it was just over dialogue, so that's fine. But you can't have that happening in the middle of a fight or anything, can you? You know, can you imagine? Can you imagine how bad that would be? I slowly made my way up to Daddy Gascoigne, and on that journey, I collected a music box. I attempted to fist the pig. It went very poorly, I do apologise. And then I got a new hat. A very eventful journey. On that journey, I also saw a message that someone had left that was seemingly out of bounds. Does anyone know how to land on this spot? Do you just jump off the top where the ladder is and kind of hope for the best? I love this kind of stuff. So, Gascoigne, fantastic boss, one of the best. Although, I have to say, he does look better with the PlayStation 1 graphics. Shout out to Lilith. The first attempt against Gascoigne went pretty well, all things considering. However, I got a little bit of a lag spike, and then shortly after that, I got another 20% battery life pop up, which obviously halted the gameplay and threw me off massively, so I ended up dying. I mean, not really a surprise, but I got quite close. I was trying to get the music box to work, but for some reason I just couldn't hit the square button. Maybe it's down to my massive pig trotters just slapping against the phone. I don't know, maybe. Second attempt was dreadful. The second I entered the fog, the connection just died. I can't even tell what's going on here. So of course, if the connection died, then I died. So that's nice. Third attempt was decent, until I got myself up the stairs at the end and screwed myself. Anything to do with movement is my enemy, so getting myself into a little tight spot like this was not very wise. Fourth attempt. I went into this fight with 2 bullets. To be fair on me, it is kind of hidden behind the L2. Slightly. So I actually couldn't see how many bullets I had. I have not seen the empty gun animation for a very long time. And this obviously threw me off because I had to do the thing where you trade your health for bullets, and then I had to heal myself so I didn't die in one shot afterwards. Whilst the game is chugging its arse off, you know, not too easy. And yet somehow, with some decent parries and the music box for the finale, I ended up killing the Father Gascoigne. And it was such an epic gamer moment that I had to open the emotes box. It took a little bit of effort, but I got there in the end. And I did my emote that I got off Eileen. I then looted his wife's corpse. Got to the cathedral ward and got myself a new outfit, so I swapped the hats out, and now we can see her beautiful face. I slowly made my way down to Alfred, just for a quick chat, and I made my way down as fast as possible. Down in Old Yarnham we have to sneak past Jorah Mormont, and also fight the blood-starved beast. Even running past enemies can be quite the challenge in and of itself. I mean, not really in the normal game, but when you're using a touchscreen, it's a little bit different, you know? Anyway, after about an hour of pain, I finally reached the blood-starved beast. And this guy is fast. Very fast. So, my lack of movement will be my downfall here. Thankfully, they can be parried, so there is still a chance I can just stand still and get some lucky shots. When this fight started though, he was being very intimidating. I mean, just look at him slowly walk up to me, and look how close he's getting. The fight went okay. I got some nice parries in there. However, I did get poisoned and realised I didn't have the antidotes equipped. Not that it would really matter too much, because I then got a pop-up notification which just wouldn't get off the screen. So that's nice. My second attempt went much better. Lovely parries. However, I messed up a shot. I got poisoned, and in my panic, I couldn't get the heal off. So close. So close. Third attempt was weird. I struggled to get the character to move, and then I realised I didn't have any bullets, which somehow kicked my adrenaline and I was able to move again. With a swing comes a roundabout, and I got clipped a few times and ended up getting cornered. Not too bad considering the poor start. Fourth attempt went by insanely slowly. Eventually I ran out of healing and I ran out of bullets, and it just came down to a matter of spam. Very messy, very ugly, and I'm not just talking about the boss, but a victory is a victory. Went back to the dream and leveled up a bit. I also purchased Gascoigne's set because if you're going to play Bloodborne, you might as well look cool doing it. And then I bought a load of bullets. I also made sure to upgrade my saw cleaver just a bit. I made a point of going back and upgrading that thing whenever I could. And then we had a quick chat with the nicest character in the entire series, and then I decided to go and fight Dark Beast Paul. Unlocking the secret area to fight Paul is very easy, especially for me, because all you've got to do is go to this bagman and die. There's a lot of first person cutscenes in this game, and it makes me wonder, what would the game be like if it was completely in first person? I've seen the mod for Sekiro that puts it in first person, and that looks great. Anyway, did a quick little run through of the area, and I went to go and fight Dark Beast Paul. First attempt at Paul was an absolute disaster. Lots of flailing around, lots of lag, lots of 20% battery remaining, and lots of death. So that's nice. My second attempt, if you can believe it, was even worse. I'd remembered to transform my weapon, so I get some extra reach. However, I'd neglected to bring any skill or talent with me. Lots of spamming, lots of lag, lots of 10% battery remaining, and lots of death. So that's nice. I took a quick little break here just to charge things up, and when I came back, my third attempt, awful again. I'm really struggling trying to move this camera, especially considering there's a huge delay between when I press my thumb and move it, between when the thing actually shows up on the screen and moves. Sometimes it's bad, like 3 seconds bad, but sometimes it's okay. Fourth attempt was way better than the previous ones. This time I decided to lock on, which is something I don't usually do against Paul, but in this case it was working. However, we can't have nice things, so
Pornhub VIP
decided to pop up and wreck the shit out of my game. I then didn't dodge the explosion. Very sad. My fifth attempt was still very rough. I made loads of mistakes, but I did manage to do some decent dodges, and I got some good hits in. It was very scrappy, it was very ugly, but I managed to snatch the victory in the end. With all my blood echoes, I then went back and purchased a special item that opens the gates. Normally I wouldn't do that, but I am not playing in those tight corners because I am going to get destroyed down there. So I took the hit and I just purchased the thing that lets me open the gates. Running through this area was quite tricky. For some reason I decided I was going to try and fight the giant, and it went really well. I would have soloed him, but there was like a man with a can and he just killed the guy for me, but I would have won. I opened up the shortcuts and made a mad dash to Amelia. Vicar Amelia. What a fantastic boss. I love this boss. And on my first attempt, I didn't do too badly. You know, there's a few situations where I was cutting it quite close and I was making some very silly mistakes. She actually managed to get off a few heals as well, which prolonged the fight even further. But, you know, I was making use of the serration and the transform attacks. It was a pretty tough fight, but I actually managed to beat her on my first try. Honestly, I couldn't believe it then, and I don't believe it now. I got very lucky. Now it's time to make a mad dash for the Witches of Hemwick. But you don't need to see all the footage of me running there. You can just imagine it went really smoothly. The Witches of Hemwick. In my opinion, I quite like the boss because your insight actually affects the boss mechanics. And I like little details like that. However, this boss is all about running around the arena looking for the witches, so I can see where it might divide opinions. Especially for me, considering I had to run around this arena, and I'm finding it very difficult to even move in a straight line, let alone around the arena and avoiding enemies. Although, as you can see, I am getting a little bit better at the moving, but I'm still nowhere near proficient enough. Especially not when the game lag spikes every so often. Got myself into a bit of a sticky situation near the end there. But the 5G implant in my brain kicked in and gave me the few extra megabits I needed and strengthened my connection and allowed me to win. However, those megabits, it drained the battery down to 10% and I got a lovely notification telling me so. I still won. Not that that's much to brag about, I suppose, it's the Witches of Hemwick. But I did it on a touchscreen, so that's something. I picked up that rune thing and headed back to the dream to see my 195cm Maria doll. Leveled up a bit, applied some runes and upgrades to my cleaver. Honestly, I would have liked to have tried different weapons because I normally play with a cleaver and it would have been nice to try something different. However, this playthrough was challenging enough and you can see I'm struggling, so I don't think changing up my weaponry would have been wise. I made my way down into the Forbidden Woods. My phone's recording broke due to the storage being full. Thankfully, I saved the clip on the PlayStation 5, so there's no on-screen stuff, but you can see I got some nice parries. It's very tricky stuff considering there's 3 of them, they all attack differently, the arena's littered with all those gravestones, but I got there in the end. Doesn't look very impressive when it just looks like I'm playing the game normally, but I'm doing it on a screen, but I couldn't get the screen recording off because it broke. Oh, so now it just looks like I fought the Shadows of Yharnam normally, so... And after that victory, I changed hats. And now the real Bloodborne begins. The hardest enemy in the entire game. So yeah, that's like my 85th death or whatever, but I definitely killed that person, and then I moved on to Rom. Rom, the vacuous spider. The first attempt was okay, but this is a problem of mine, and I got very greedy. I also didn't lock on, like a big dumb idiot. I can't move my camera, so I need to lock on. I deserve that. The second attempt was alright. Until I lost control and I just ran straight into the horde of enemies. And it was at that point I debated if I should just take out all of the spiders. But that would take forever, you know, such a long time, so many enemies to kill while avoiding Rom. So for my third attempt I killed all the spiders. Now this only took about 15 minutes and it all eventually resulted in the death of Rom. I always thought that Rom was like the culmination of the Phalanx from Demon Souls and the Covetous Demon from Dark Souls 2. Nice little boss. I love the arena as well, really nice. I went to go and talk to the Queen and the moon lowered my battery power. I did such a good job of running through all of Yahar'gul, but I misjudged the area of the laser and I got wombo comboed. And after that I'm not quite sure what happened, but the connection was awful. Look at that, bloody hell. So I took a little break and I made sure I restarted my phone and restarted the internet just to see if that would help, and it turns out that yeah, it did. The connection was much smoother and it allowed me to avoid all of the old ladies. Although I did ram my face into a bush. Thankfully, I managed to pull myself together and avoid the laser. I got myself some upgrade materials and then I managed to avoid all these enemies by a hair's breadth. I then ran all the way to the boss with no issues. The one reborn is stationary, which is good, and I got absolutely destroyed. That was so silly. Second attempt was awful. Absolutely awful. I am so bad. Third attempt was good. Very messy, some very close calls. A lot of times my thumbs were actually clashing against each other and it made turning the camera very difficult. In the downtime from this I've been playing on an actual controller with other games. It's weird, I've noticed I kinda just hook my thumb under the rim of the stick and I give it like a flick back and forth. And that's how I control the camera. It's just something I've noticed recently when I've been playing a game where I actually can't move my thumb as I normally do. So if nothing else, this challenge has taught me something about myself. But yeah, that was really messy and really close and I probably didn't deserve to win, but as they say, every hole's a goal. The one reborn gets aborted and I inception my way into this dead man's dream. I'm quickly speeding this up because it's just literally me running around in a half circle to get the shortcut. This area is quite long, you see, and I'm going to use this now as a little bit of an amazing excuse that my thumbs were fatigued, and that's why the boss fights are not going so well. I got to the boss room and I quickly changed my hood for a helmet and I went to fight the boss. Amygdala, or Amygdala, whatever you prefer. Normally this is a fantastic boss, but that generally hinges on the fact that you can actually see them. Amygdala likes to jump and they like to flail. Something which is almost impossible to keep track of with the current setup. So of course, I got absolutely blasted. Although interestingly enough, I actually got invaded. In 2023, I was invaded. And another thing, the invader was really friendly. Unfortunately, I ended up performing exactly how I do in all social situations, and I made myself look like a complete fool. I could blame that on the fact that I'm not actually controlling the game by normal means, but they don't know that. I was nervous, there was someone watching me. Second attempt at the boss was intense. I got hit by the boss a lot. I was healing way too much. In fact, I actually ran out of healing. That's how bad it was going. But with incredible patience and perseverance, I managed to take the victory. It may have been patience and perseverance, or it might have just been the fact that I was spamming over and over and getting very lucky. The next area is horrible, so I just ran through it, like what most people do. The boss of this area is Mikolash. And I have to say, this might be controversial, but Mikolash is actually my favourite character. Now I'm probably reading too deep into this, but I feel that Mikolash is very Demon Souls. I can see him in the Nexus. His music has a very similar tone to the Demon Souls intro music, and we can't forget that he has some of the best lines in the entire game. Delivered excellently.
Oh, majestic! A hunter is a hunter even in a dream.
Now is it me, or does Mikolash sound just a little bit like Michael Rosen?
I loved my mum's chocolate cake, yes.
Just another tick in the W column for Mikolash. However, when it comes to fighting this guy, I seem to have lost all motor functions. I don't know what happened, but I went into the second phase and for some reason, I couldn't manage to get a lock on, and I couldn't even manage to move my character. So, he did his one-shot move. I thought that might have been a problem with the phone, so I quickly did a reset and then came back. It turns out yes, the connection was a bit dodgy, so I came back with a much better connection this time. Whilst I might have come back with a stronger connection, I didn't come back with improved skills. You might be surprised to know that I've actually beaten Mikolash with only my fists, but that was on a controller. The third attempt was great. I hit the landing and I actually cancelled his Call Beyond one-shot, although he was doing it when I was really close up, which is not really supposed to happen, but can happen. After that, it was just a matter of strafing and spamming. The typical Mikolash fight. Sorry Mikolash. 10% battery though, so that's nice. At this point I'd pretty much given up on the pot noodle charger. I actually won it in a contest many moons ago, and it has served me well in many endeavours. But it just wasn't up to this task. This task required more power than the pot noodle could give. I nipped back to the Hunter's Dream and I actually wanted to see if I could pull off the infamous duplication glitch. Surprise surprise, I actually managed it. I duplicated a Great One's wisdom because I actually wanted to buy something with my insight. Honestly, I'm still quite impressed that I managed to pull off the duplication glitch considering how tight that timing can be. I got my insight done and my upgrade materials, and then I realised I'd actually need quite a lot more insight if I wanted to get the full upgrade. And I can duplicate, but I'm just not going to be able to pull that off on these controls. I think I managed about 4 or 5 duplications in 25 to 30 minutes, which is pretty bad. So I just had to make do with what I had. It's time to fight Murgo's wet nurse. As usual, I just ran through the whole thing to get to the boss. I almost killed myself falling from the shortcut. I'm getting deja vu here. And I also started wearing the cage as a nice little homage to Mikolash. Looking good there. Murgo's wet nurse. The first attempt went really well. I avoided some hits, I got some hits, but I don't have the speed to stop her from summoning the second nurse. I also got a few lag spikes as well, which really didn't help the issue. I was so close to victory, but then I got caught in a flurry and I couldn't escape. For a first attempt, I didn't do too bad. In the second attempt, I got a little bit more confident, and I even managed to get a stagger. I actually had some bolt paper lying around as well, and I decided to use that, and it worked out really nicely. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though, because there were some really close calls. And it really did come down to the wire at the end when she summoned the other nurse. But I quickly stood up, got one last hit, and I managed to kill 2 nurses in one go. Back at the base, Gehrman is blazing it up, so I decided to go and join him. And so, the nightmare ends. I submit myself to Gehrman, and he woke me up from this terrible nightmare. So, can you beat Bloodborne using... Of course I had to fight Gehrman. Although, I kinda wish I didn't. It actually took me a very, very long time to do. There was one attempt where I got him down so low, and just look at this greed. Just look. There is so much greed here. I didn't even deserve to win at that point. No, when you get that greedy, you don't deserve to win, and the game made sure I didn't. Klye from the far future here, and it turns out that the gameplay of me fighting Gehrman has been mysteriously deleted or corrupted or something. I can't find it anywhere. It's just gone. So you'll just have to believe me. I did beat him. I promise. Awkward segue to the outro I recorded like 6 months ago. As I've said before, I'd like to open the challenge up to everyone. If you want to do all the bosses with remote play, you do all the bosses with remote play. I'm just here to beat the game, because let me tell you, this was hard as shit. I've been working on this for a very long time. So, can you beat Bloodborne using remote play? Yes. Yes, you can. Thank you very much for watching. Do all the YouTube stuff, you know, like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, take care.